Welcome back to the beautiful shores of Milwaukee. This is Mythinformed, a Mythinlysis Milwaukee podcast.
Hey everyone, we'd like to take a quick moment to thank our fantastic patrons for their generous contributions. We would not be able to do what we do without you, so thank you so much.
Seriously, we do appreciate your financial support, and we want to hear your opinions and feedback. So please let us know what you think, and join us on our monthly patron hangout. Hi, welcome to Mythinformed with your host, Brian Edwards, and Mr. Fritz with us today, right?
How's it going?
Hi, how's it going? And today we have, we're going to call him it's Sergeant Hymnalysis. He goes by Hymnalysis on YouTube. I'm calling it Sergeant Hymnalysis because he made a funny joke about the young Marines, and I'm postulating that he made it up to Sergeant there. You know, but I'm doing this without any evidence. But since we talk about religion a lot, you know, I'm allowed to do that. Right? Okay. So Hymnalysis provides critical analysis of like Christian worship music. Usually comes from like a more Protestant evangelical bent and culture, like from his own perspective. And what's kind of neat about this is sometimes when you hear these things, there's a hidden meaning inside of it that you may not have like gotten, and it's interesting to kind of like dig down and see what they said, and then juxtapose it out or translate it out and see, does that make any sense in the real world? Does it even match scripture? And does this fit Christianity? So that's really interesting. So welcome, Hymnalysis. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. And I made the esteemed rank of Private 1 in the Young Marines, so you can call me Sergeant. It's cool. Nobody will notice. There's no difference between private and sergeant. Practically the same thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll give you corporal. We'll cut the difference.
All right. Well, I can
call him
I'll
take it.
Private Him.
Private.
Reporting for duty.
All right. I would just don't even get me started with like the Full Metal Jacket. You know, the references. Private. I'm not going to do the R. Lee Ermey. So and recently a hymn came out that's called Mary. I mean, this has been around forever. It's like Mary, Did You Know? Now I think we're hearing it again because it's Christmas, and I think there's new versions that come out. So I've read some where they're like, "Did you see this new song?" But it's one that I'm sure everybody has heard, and we're gonna kind of give you an example of how he kind of breaks this down. But first, we were going to start with one of our own. I thought that rather than get into this one, we know you kind of prepared it and was working on it. We had kind of prepared one, and we know that we're giving you this little bit sight read, so you're going to have to do it, you know, fairly quickly. But wonder if you've heard this one, and if so, could you break this one down for us?
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Well, this one here comes from...
Do we have to give you the name?
Well, it comes from a band that got over, 1.4 million views on YouTube. So they've obviously have a following. We just wanted to get your take on the lyrics and the meaning and maybe a little background on the band. Sorry for catching you kind of off guard here, but we know that you're an expert in this field.
You can continue to say that. Yes, I won't dispute that at all.
I want to get down on my knees and start pleasing Jesus. I want to feel his salvation all over my face.
The CD is filled with instant classics. Who doesn't remember?
So... we just were interested in knowing, what's your take on, that inspirational band?
I'm sorry I had to mute myself. I was too busy speaking in tongues and praising the shit out of God. Like, I just lost it. As soon as I heard those beautiful words come across my speakers, it was just inspirational. I mean, there is nothing in this world that makes me want to drop down on my knees and start pleasing Jesus right there at the altar in front of thousands of congregants. I mean, what is there out there that's even close to that?
Yeah. So right after that, your entire Sunday is spent.
Jesus
no getting up again.
Too.
Like back to bed.
Yeah, I mean, 1 week is way too long to be able to praise again.
Oh yeah, I've got to refresh on Wednesday. That's why we have Wednesday worship.
Wow, you have a religious libido. It sounds like.
I like that phrasing. That's a new one for me.
Well, because I'm more of those, like once a month is okay.
And the later lyrics in that song, the body of Christ, all buff, muscled, and toned, the body of Christ, I want to make it my own, you know? I'm inspired by those lyrics. It's a little gay, but it's cool. You know, it's 2017.
And you
everybody's
for
doing
me,
it.
as I get a little bit older, you know, I can only, you know, handle it once a year, you know, typically around Christmas time.
That's a libido-less marriage. You know, that anything under twice a year, that actually qualifies for it.
Yeah, well, I make it remind us sometimes during Easter.
You're atheist sexual.
Hold on, how can I have a religious libido if I'm atheist sexual? Wait, hold on.
Well, no, Fritz is atheist sexual. You have a religious libido is what I'm saying. I'm somewhere in the middle. Sometimes the language does get this pseudo-sexual. So, now that, you know, that was a bit of a planned joke, right? For anyone that might be thinking that was actually a real hymn, that was South Park, and that was Cartman on the lead. He was probably doing the bass and the vocals.
Yeah, Token Black was on bass and Butterscotch was on drums.
Okay, nice. Right. So they got a band and he's cranking that one out. So that's a joke, but we're going to get into like the Mary Did You Know? Can you roll that first in case anyone hasn't heard this?
Mary, did you know that your baby boy would save our sons and daughters? Did you know that your baby boy has come to make you new?
Yeah, so there we had a little bit of Mary Did You Know? What's your take on Mary Did You Know? I know you introduced that to us through our email communications prior to the show.
That song, it's funny. I actually waited, and this is something I do with my videos. I wait to listen to the song until I'm about to sit down and actually do it, because as a former Christian, I have a lot of emotions tied to these songs, and I happen to not have listened to them for several years. So when I do listen to them for the first time, it kind of messes with me. So I listened to it about 5 minutes before you called me, and the version that I saw happened to have scenes from the Bible movie and be the CeeLo Green version. And it kind of made me sad to watch Jesus, like, you know, they show the early life of Christ, him being this extremely nice man, very congenial, loved by everyone, and then just needlessly killed. Mm-hmm. And it makes you kind of tear up a little bit if you're somebody who grew up in it. And that's the whole point of the song, or the video anyways, but the song for sure, it's basically not hypothetically, but just asking Mary, hey, are you aware, maybe you've been told this, maybe not, maybe you didn't get the memo, that your son is basically God? And if not, we're here to sing a song to you about it. It's pretty freaking great. You should listen. Yeah. But like, and one more thing. I've seen people arguing about this song online. Like, there's a Federalist article. I don't know if you've seen their website. I stumbled upon it last week, and what a treasure trove of stupidity that thing is. Anyways, there's a Federalist article written very seriously condemning this song because it's biblically illiterate. Because the whole premise of their argument is, and I shit you not, of course Mary knew that he was God. Of course she knew the prophecy. It says it right there in the Bible, dumbasses. Yeah. Well, if you read the song as a piece of poetry, then you would get the real meaning. They're not. The song isn't literally asking Mary if she's aware of Jesus' divinity. You know what I mean? It's much more nuanced than that.
Right. Yeah. It would be kind of like, it seems like, to me, it's like asking the reporter that broke the big story, like, hey, did you know they broke into like this hotel and stole like the Democratic secrets? It was Watergate, I think. You know, and the guy's like, oh, I broke this story. I mean, like the angel Gabriel appeared to her. Like, of course she would know. You know, so I guess what it strikes me, you know, well, of course she knew. But what they're doing is they're retelling it in a poetic fashion, is what you're saying?
Yeah. And it's objectively a very pretty song, depending on who sings it. I prefer the CeeLo version because it seems like one of those songs that you would sing slowly. I don't know how to describe what that meaning behind why I perceive that, but it just feels right. And it's pretty because it's basically saying, yeah, you're aware, addressing Mary, yeah, you're aware that he's God and you know he's going to be the savior of the world, but did you know that he's also going to do all these great things that you aren't aware of yet? And like, look how precious he is, and thank you for being Mary.
Yeah, like, it's even better than the Gabriel said, like, hey, wait, there's more.
it seems these songs, even though you're a former Christian, they still bring back a little bit of nostalgia for you.
I wouldn't say nostalgia, but it's a word that's part of it, because I can, for a very, very brief time after I listen to the songs for the first time in years, I go back to not necessarily being a worshiper, because I was never somebody who got lost in worship. I was just convinced absolutely that there was a God. So what it does is it puts me in a guilt trip mode for a little while, and it makes me feel like that I'm an idiot for abandoning my faith, and that I'm seeing all of this stuff right in front of me that I should accept lest I be damned, and I'm refusing to accept it because I'm a piece of shit who wants to believe earth-based evidence. So like for just a little while, it like really messes with me. You know what I mean?
Well,
like the first few seconds, like still then?
No, like, well, with watching this particular video, the way that they put together the scenes from the Bible with him singing and just watching Jesus get tortured after being so nice to everybody, it was like, wow, I'm basically saying I'm okay with this. What's wrong with me? But Christians are also saying it too, because the prosecution and persecution, really, of Christ is completely necessary for their entire narrative. So, of course, they're okay with it. But why would they cry about it? Sorry, that's a whole other tangent.
No, it's a good point. But I think any story where, like, an innocent victim gets punished for no reason, you know, like that, most cultures, most people object to that. So I think you automatically, Jesus, if the innocent being punished and tortured, should get sympathy from just about anyone.
Yeah, that's true. And I have a lot to learn from you guys about mythicism, really, because I'm not convinced that there was a historical Jesus, but at the same time, I have such a strong Christian background that, like, my position is like, well, there had to be somebody who at least played the part, you know, walked around and did all, you know, some of these things and people took it too seriously or something. But I don't know much of the background of, like, where all the texts came from and whatnot. I do know that the most close account to Jesus's actual life was like a generation or two after he died. So it kind of invalidates the whole eyewitness bit.
The two individuals to look at the most for that type of background information are people that, well, one we still go to and one we used to go to because she passed away. But Richard Carrier and D.M. Murdoch are two great sources for that. The hymn piece actually was also a big part of my upbringing because my grandparents were, a big part of the church growing up, and they still are. But my grandmother would play the piano in different congregations. But one that really stuck out, it's just part of growing up was the, Jesus loves me, the yes, Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so. Is that one that you remember growing up as well? Is that common in many different denominations?
Intimately familiar with that one, and mostly because of children's church. I was my most zealous when I was a kid. I was the one in Sunday school who knew all the verses. Yeah. I could throw down with any what's a cool word for kids who know lots about the Bible? There aren't any anyways. I knew all the verses. I knew all the songs. I still remember all my children's church songs. Like, and tell me if you know this one.
You were a based Bible kid.
You could say bibliopedic. Yeah. Can you say I'm bibliopedic?
Bibliophilic. Bibliopedic. Wait, hold on.
Instead of encyclopedic, I'm bibliopedic. I'm hymnopedic.
That works for a lot of reasons. There was this running joke when I was in high school that this reminds me of we had to memorize a random Bible verse and bring it to Sunday school and, recite it for whatever reason. And this was non-binding because it was just Protestant Sunday school, not attached to an academy of any kind. So, like, really, who gave a shit? But the kids that went there did anyways. Like, as we got older and more apathetic, as teens tend to do, the running joke was, yeah, I memorized a verse. Jesus wept. Yeah, I did it. Bitch. I forget what the fucking verse even is. I just know that it's literally Jesus wept, the shortest verse in the Bible.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah. Subject, verb. You got it done. Okay.
So what brought you into this niche? At least in your early start, you've been active for a little over a year. Is that right?
Yeah. I started working at Amazon about a year and a half ago in a fulfillment center, and I used to count items. Like, all I would do is go around and count things and make sure that the numbers are right. And I come across this CD called 100 Greatest Hymns, and I just picked it up. I was like, oh, this is neat. And I was, of course, already an atheist at this point, and then it just clicked. Why don't I analyze hymns? And then I put the portmanteau together of my name, Hymn, and Analysis. I was like, got it, wrote a note to myself, put it in my pocket. I was like, I can't forget this. I'm going to go do a whole thing when I get home. And bunch of terrible equipment later, I created my first video where I talked about a book. And then I did a hymn, and then that got scrapped because it was awful. The production was just terrible. It was Trust and Obey. I went back and redid it, but that song has to be one of the reasons I started doing this for sure, because it is based around the most disgusting concept in Christianity, which is no matter what's wrong, you should just put your faith in God and obey him. And if you have questions, fuck him. Just have faith. Like, what is that Psalms verse that's like, lean not unto thine own understanding? Like, that sentence alone, like, fuck that sentence, that whole thing. That's why I hate religious moderates. It's like, not the people, but you know what I mean? The hypocritical faith that is the mainstream nowadays.
Again, it just...
but who do you find as the religious moderate? Exactly, because I think a lot of people's definitions on this are different. Like the religious moderate, the way I define it is those that, yes, they believe, but they believe in separation of church and state, so I don't have much of an issue.
I have an issue with all religious people, not the people themselves, but the fact that they possess a belief because it stands counter to everything else that we base society on. I have a major problem with people who think faith is okay. Even when I was a Christian, I was an epistivist, meaning I did everything I believed was based on evidence. It's just that when I was a Christian, I was wrong about how I perceived evidence. I thought the Bible was sufficient, and I wasn't shown wrong until years later. So, like, I already out the gate rejected everything supernatural that wasn't Christian. It was all bullshit to me, and I could tell you why it was bullshit, not just based on the Bible, just because it was just plainly BS. And as soon as I applied that to religion, I was able to reject it, and now I'm of the mind that everyone should reject it because it's stupid. There's no belief or no basis for any of these beliefs. And what gets me most, I guess, is that all these people believe in a God that is okay with damning people to hell with no reason and showing them the evidence for his existence before he does it. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus is Lord. Before you die, or before you go to hell, you will acknowledge God and praise his name, and then he sends you to hell. What kind of 1984 bullshit is that? That's literally the end of the book, 1984. They praise the state and then they kill them.
Yeah, it seems like two of the biggest terms that come to mind here that atheists like to utilize, which is connected with this idea of just blind faith, are terms like confirmation bias, which you exhibited, in terms of what you were seeing as fact, and then the cognitive dissonance. Despite what you were seeing, you still couldn't make sense of any other idea if it wasn't something that the Bible said. And it brings me back to that hymn that I so terribly sung that sticks in my mind, because it's that idea of it's because the Bible tells me so, and that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Bible tells me so, and that's just the way it is.
That is the perfect indoctrination hymn for little kids, because it's so sweet and innocent and cute, and it's very simple in its message, and a kid will absorb it readily, just like any other propaganda. And, I just don't get it. People say God's love is unconditional. It's the most conditional love there is. It has a trial period. You get to, you're born and, you unlock the free trial for God-based WinRAR, and if you die, the thing deletes itself, and you can't reinstall it because you've something that blocks it. You know what I mean? Once you get to heaven, you're fucked. You can't change your mind. You already made your decision to purchase it or not.
Yeah, that's a hilarious, nerdy tech example. I enjoy that. But it's a good point. To me, I think the concept of unconditional love itself, period, whether it be God, hell, your dog doesn't even give you unconditional love. You start kicking him and not feeding him, and he's not going to be your best friend anymore. But that's about as close as it gets. It's like your dog, and but still, all love is conditional. So I don't like people that say unconditional love between spouses or between family members, or God. That just doesn't exist.
It's a very immature concept too, because it's naive to say that nothing can change about anything.
Correct.
That's one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn in life. Two of the hardest lessons I ever learned. One, there is nothing in this world that everyone agrees upon. Not a goddamn thing. Say anything that you think everybody agrees upon, and I'll find you somebody who disagrees with it. And to me, that was mind-blowing, because I believed in objective morality based on the Bible. Like, I was into that shit. And I never debated atheists. Like, I never, up until one time when I was 21, I never actually had to defend my religion but once. And you know what I mean? So I couldn't give the Christian perspective on it too well. But somebody debated morality with me once, and I was like, no, there's one set of morals. It's in the Bible. There is no disputing this. And that was the end of it, because the person who was talking to me was like, okay, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah. Well, how did you feel that you came out of that conversation? Because that other individual obviously felt that you weren't worth, having a debate with anymore, but you came out with that argument. Did you feel that you won? You had the upper hand regardless of that individual's response?
Oh, yeah. I felt like I was completely correct, because how could you possibly doubt the Bible? I mean, it's the Bible. It's just evident on its own. Like, everybody knows this. At one point, I remember actually believing that everybody in this world was either a Christian or somebody who stopped going to church. Like, lost people were just lapsed Christians. You know what I mean? Like lapsed Catholics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you indicate, to quote, that everything you did was based on evidence, even if it was, Bible-based evidence. Was your transition relatively quick, or was it an instant, couple instances, or was it a slow transition where there was a little bit of pain once you needed to, make that plunge to say, I think I'm done with this?
2 weeks. And
I'd say that was
of
pretty
course,
quick.
There was build up to it, but like, it started with that time I had to debate somebody about the existence of God, and my whole debate was the argument from beauty. That's all I could muster. And all the guy kept saying, I would go on these like sermons about how beautiful snow is because it was snowing outside. And I was like, how could you look at that and not believe there's God out there? I mean, that's evidence enough. And the guy's like, no, it's really not. And he was really soft-spoken. He just kept saying, no, that's not enough for me. And I just eventually gave up, and I was like, went to bed, and I was like, God, you're stupid. Just as assured as I was the first time around with objective morality, but like, the years later, I took a mythology class and a cultural anthropology class one semester to the next. And both of those opened my eyes to the fact that, yes, people do have fundamentally different beliefs than me, not on religion. And then I took cultural anthropology, and then I realized, holy shit, people's entire societies are different than what I want them to be. And like, there's only 300 million of me and Americans in the world, and nobody else likes us. And there's a lot of reasons why. You know what I mean? It was crazy. And then add on top of that, the fact that I had a friend come to me and tell me I had to write a paper disproving evolution for class, and I gave up halfway through because I can't do it. And now I'm an atheist because of this paper. And I was like, what? And then I started reading the atheism subreddit to force myself to see their point of view. And about 2 weeks into that, plus watching Oz, seeing the Muslim character Kareem Saeed on there act like a devout Muslim and like a true God-fearing man, and realizing that I was never that, and that I believed based on fear alone, it convicted me that not only was I wrong in an evidence-based sense about my beliefs, but I was never a sincere Christian. So I left Christianity on what I call bad terms, because I feel like I never believed for the right reasons. I believed because I was told to, and because I feared hell. And actually, the fear of hell was the last thing that I gave up.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. The same way we're here when I broke the thing that thought that wasn't going to get you, that wasn't laid. I remember feeling so light that I thought I was going to like float out of the house. It was really weird. Like almost wow, this is almost too freeing. It's strange when you can get over that binary. But you're right. The fear of hell is a big deal, and it doesn't bother some. But I think I was kind of like you. I was also the Bible whiz kid. I had read 3 different picture Bibles. I knew my shit. And like, yeah, I believed it. So, I started wearing my seatbelt when I got to second base with my girlfriend, because that's what I was afraid of. Not head injury. It was going to hell.
That is so relatable. I'm not really sure how to respond to that. Every word of it I agree with.
Yeah.
I never felt the freeing feeling, just this overwhelming sense of guilt and fear. And to be honest with you, from time to time when depression strikes, I often still get the 2 feelings. One, if hell exists, I'm going there. And if it does, it's made for me, because I'm a piece of shit that chose to reject God based on the words of other men.
One of the the great hallmarks, in my opinion, for Christianity. It's that great selling point. It's that fear of hell. You know, I remember asking.
I don't know if I call it a selling point as much as that.
It is. It's like, if you
fine
do not
print.
do this, if you do not do this, you will go to hell. Well, what if I just question a little bit? No, you will go to hell. What if you do all these great things, but you don't become a born again Christian? You will go to hell. It's just like, oh my goodness, and you will burn for infinity. And it's just like, oh my goodness.
Well,
it seems to me that is. Not only if it's a selling point, it keeps people, you know.
I guess you could call it a sales point. I mean, it's fun. It's funny when you're in sales, you'll get taught. You know what people care about more, if you're trying to sell a product, is not what this product will give you. Like how can this help you? Well, these are the benefits. Like what they really care is about what you potentially lose if you don't have this. People are much more assertive of loss than they are of gain. So you're saying, well, wow, man, you'd lose your 401k if you don't have this insurance. Versus, man, like buy this stock. This could be the next thing that makes you, you know, a big millionaire. Like people are much more protective that way. So I wonder if religion works in the same way.
Oh yeah, you lose your salvation. You know, I mean, my goodness, I don't want to burn forever and ever till the end of time.
So the hell argument can be stronger than the heaven argument.
Oh, for sure. I'd rather
absolutely.
not burn,
if you convince somebody that they're going to be like spit roasted by Satan for all of eternity, also with fire, take that how you will. Then if you can get them to believe that, you can get them to believe anything, which is why it's easy as shit to convert a Christian to Islam. Because you're basically just convincing them of a more severe form of their own religion.
Right.
And I almost became a Muslim. Like I was during or a little bit prior to, I can't remember the exact series of events, but like part of watching that show Oz that messed with me was, again, the really devout guy was like, I'm not serious. Protestantism isn't serious. Nobody takes this shit seriously unless they're in a worship band, and even those guys look really dumb doing it. So why don't I consider Catholicism?
Well, here's one thing that brings a connection to what you had stated earlier about your argument for beauty and how mythology and these cultural anthropology classes kind of change your viewpoints because of the differences. I viewed them in terms of the similarities. There's so many mythologies that are similar throughout regions, throughout time. You know, comparative religion. You know, we see how one religion has been copied from another religion. They share different ideas and they throw away what they don't like. I mean, if
the
you look
flood
at,
myth, for example,
the
many
flood myth
copies,
is one, or the dying and rising gods, Jesus being one of them. And, you know, Jesus also exists in Islam. So it's, you know, that might be an easy transition as well, not only for, a Jewish person to Christianity or reverse, but to say, hey, look, we have Jesus as well. Come join us.
And you don't have to deal with this Trinity thing that you couldn't figure out.
Yeah, like no Christian has a good answer on what the Trinity actually is. Yep. There are, now to be fair, I say that in jest, but there are some denominations who've really figured it out. And there's one, it's a Pentecostal denomination. I forget what their formal title is, but they basically believe the Trinity is BS and that it's all one God. And then, like, I want to just go in there and knock on their door and be like, hey, so who sacrificed who to who now?
Yeah.
Like, explain, please. Oh, Trinity's broken into 3 parts again. What you going to do? And the Holy Spirit's a big part of your church because it makes people speak in tongues. How is that different from God? Oh, it's not? Well, that's bullshit because it's like literally self-evident that or not self-evident, it's contradictory on its face because you can't have 1 and 3 at the same time. 3 does not equal 1. Like I can't even wrap my head around it, and I don't believe in the shit.
I know you're going to get the poisonous snake if you say that shit too loud, right?
So Private Hymn, to respectfully address you. How do you tie in these different viewpoints and these different ideas and belief systems that you have now and your new viewpoint on Christianity to your connection to analysis and hymns? Do you bring it back to just kind of what they might mean, where they come from in the Bible, or just the different ways that they can be interpreted?
Well, I'll admit that in my first couple of videos, I was a lot more serious, and I'm trying to get back to that. what with the hymn videos themselves. Now, if you'll notice on my channel, I have Facebook shitpost videos where I just make fun of encouraging Facebook posts, but that's just, I'm not serious at all during those except for like a couple brief moments. But I'd like to bring myself back to where I was when I did the video about, what is it? I have decided to follow Jesus, one of the most haunting songs ever. And, I'd like to try to, especially with the slower worship songs, like the invitational hymns, I would like to talk about the emotions that they bring like I did today, try to give myself a Christian frame of reference and talk from that, and then switch to an atheist frame of reference towards the end, where I talk about how I feel about it now that I have a better point of view on it, and a more correct point of view is what I should have said. I want to talk about the historicity of them some, like with I've decided to follow Jesus. It's got a really fucked up story behind it because like these Christian missionaries were coming to a village and killing people because they didn't convert. No. The missionaries showed up, they converted some people, and then the villagers started killing the converts. And this dude watched as his whole family was killed. Because they refused to say, I don't believe in Jesus anymore. And it was said that this guy had uttered the words, I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, and before he was killed. And the song was written about that. And with some of the ones that have more haunting origins like that, then I'd like to go over those things and then
I thought
frame
that was
those against the evil that is the concept of God. Sorry, I
that's
tend
a
to go
good
on a while.
one. That's a story, right, where the killers go into a Christian town, they wipe out everyone, they tell them to convert away from the religion, and none of them do. And they're so impressed that everyone went to their death not recanting that they themselves convert to this religion. And you're like, okay, that's a weird kind of inspirational story, you know. It's why did
but if
everybody
you're a Christian, it already gets you choked up a little bit just thinking about it,
right?
You
because
know what I mean?
Yeah, instead of the first thing is like, well, I hope none of those guys are in my parish, right? Because man, they just wiped out of town.
How awkward would that be to be in a church pew right next to dude who just killed your brother for believing, and now he believes? He's like, we're cool, right? Yeah, we're cool.
So it was one of the weird things with like, sometimes the saints. So there was a saint in Italy where, you know, she was the youngest saint killed ever, and you know the would be, you know, it was an attempted rape murder, right? And this actually really happened, and this 11-year-old girl gets killed, and then the murderer goes to jail for 30 years, but then he gets out. And they canonize her. It's the only time where like the mother was still alive when they canonize somebody, you know, is there with the murderer who's repented and converted because, you know, the little girls appeared to him in prison after his death. And they're like simpatico to a point where now they think that, you know, even the murderer should be canonized. And I'm like, this is not good for Catholicism. Like, you know, like this guy's a bad guy. Like just because, you know, he saw a vision of the little girl that he murdered in prison and turned his life around doesn't make him a good guy. It certainly doesn't make him saint-worthy.
Well, I mean, as we all know, the Catholic Church is the absolute arbiter of morality in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, we all submit to this. We're all part of the secret underground Catholic Church that aims to take over the world and insert the New World Order. Just ask Jack Chick. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. He puts it in all of his publications. It's right there for everyone to see. So obviously, sainthood is the barometer for morality. Whether or not you get there determines, you know, how good of a person you are. If you get canonized, you're fucking great. Like, have you ever taken a look at the canonization process for saints? It's fucking weird, dude. Yeah. You have to have confirmed miracles. Yes, how do you confirm a miracle?
Is it two people?
No, that have the two witnesses on legitimate confirms. I actually looked up the ones for Saint Maria Goretti because she's canonized in like the 1940s, 1950s. In that range. So, you know, we do have semblance of science, and both were really weird. One was a foot ulcer. I had to get back to the original, you know, like you had to look at translations of the original Italian. And what I was told by the priest was that his foot was crushed underneath like a big stone. He was a stone worker, and the stone had like crushed his foot. And the crush injuries are no joke. You can die from those, you know, throw a thrombus and then you'll stroke out. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a big deal. But it turns out, no, this was a foot ulcer, that got really bad, and you could have died from it, but then he didn't. He had inexplicably got better. And if you're not
convinced of God, I am.
Yeah, the other was another, like a liver issue. Somebody that, was probably going to die. When you bring in a patient and they have all these things, and you're like, yeah, they're goners. And then the one person makes it, that's a miracle. Like, yeah, the doctors can't explain it. No, we don't know. But you got better. But no one's ever, like, the miracle where, somebody's amputated limb comes back. That I want to see, because that's the kind of proof I want. Yeah. Because that would be a big one.
Yeah, that would be a good one for me.
Go ahead.
Just agreeing that would be a good evidence for me to say, let me think about this twice.
Yeah.
Whenever we go full lizard mode and we can cut off limbs and just be like, pop them back, just be like, dude, why'd you cut the fucking arm off for?
Or starfish, right?
Well, I will say this. It seems science is getting pretty close to being able to, at some point, maybe not in my lifetime, but to regrow, organs or limbs.
Listen. Can we keep that under wraps until the oligarchical generation that's overlording us right now goes away? Like, at least, maybe Gen X is in charge. I'll deal with that. But don't let Rupert Murdoch take advantage of life-saving procedures. Let him die. We can stop with that now.
Yeah. So another question here. With your focus on historicity, with the origins of some of these songs and some of these inspirational instances, and everyone gets together and it's an amazing feeling. Who are you looking for in terms of an audience? Are you looking to have a little bit of a cross section of audience to kind of appreciate your analysis of these, even though maybe at some point you kind of go to the atheist side and then you kind of throw it to the wind? Because I mean, for us during some of our conferences, one of our conferences we had, for instance, like Justin Bass debate, Richard Carrier. And Justin Bass is, a born-again Christian. So we're hoping that in that conference, for instance, that we would have, a mixed audience.
We did.
And we did. And so who are you looking for with your audience?
Before I answer that, I want to preface with something before I forget. No matter how disrespectful and childish I get when making fun of songs and religion in general, just if anybody cares to hear this, I do respect people's right to believe. I know why you believe. I get it. I was there. And I know that in a time of hardship, you run to it and it's comforting, and some people just don't know what to do without it. And those people I leave alone, or try to anyways. But I do oppose religion for a lot of good reasons. So to answer your question, I would like to have an audience that appeals to both sides. I would like to ideally convert some people, because I want to, my main goal is to prevent lives like mine from occurring in the future. Because I had a very, very difficult time throughout my life with Christian guilt. And I mean, that was a component of a much larger thing. But if I could remove that from, anybody's life and set them free from the boundaries of hardcore religion, I would love to be a part of that, even if I'm just like one of the many people that they listen to and change their mind. You know what I mean? I just want to contribute to that, and the idea of it makes me happy. And of course, I also want to make atheists laugh about stuff that they think's funny, which is the ridiculous concepts within Christian music, for example.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's a good point too. I tend to, if we can agree on separation of church and state, the rest is almost like the Packers versus the Bears. We can needle at each other, and it's all in good fun, because ultimately that it just doesn't have that big of a deal, because you're probably not a fundamentalist. I have big problems with the fundamentalists still, but that's also true with with political ideology fundamentalists too, and we see those both on the right and the left, and I don't like that either. So I see both of those. I see religious-like concepts creeping into politics on both sides, just holding, fast to this ideology. And I think that people are criticizing that a lot too. And,
I don't ever get into politics, because I try to keep kind of the Bible Reloaded Switzerland policy, or Sweden, whichever. Basically neutrality on politics. I have my opinions, but and this is different reasons than they have, but I know enough to know how ignorant I am about politics. I have feelings, but I don't have the research to back up my feelings there. You know what I mean? And I'm always learning something new every day about every politician I like and everyone I dislike. And I'll find a good quality here and a bad quality there. And I'll see a new point of view every day and incorporate it. You know what I mean? And I just don't feel I have the authority to speak on those types of things. But the one thing I know that I agree with you guys on is that dominionism and authoritarianism are terrible things to allow into government, and that does appear on both ends of the political spectrum.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those can squelch science and free inquiry and in liberal democracy. So I think, opposing authoritarianism whenever you see it, that tends to be that thing. That's the thing that I didn't like about religion, and that guilt-based concept.
The inability to have freedom of thought, or the lack of freedom of thought is a problem for me as well.
I wonder if that's true. I mean, like, I'd have to read more into the social sciences. If you look at like a conservative like Jordan Peterson, who comes out and will say, that there's a function for religion. If it stays within these bounds, it's actually a benefit. And then he breaks down why. And countering that argument actually seems to be the interest of, the most interest of me right now. To steel man that argument. Well, what about this? He believes in separation of church and state. Okay, maybe you feel that way, Brian, but your brain is, more libertarian centered. What about everybody else? What if I'm the odd man out? What if you're the odd man out? You see what I'm saying? And that, like, I'm not well versed in that argument, and that's one I want to take on, because I'm not really sure what that answer is, because I haven't looked at any data.
I know how you feel, because I started out, of course, when I started out with my political beliefs, it was like, I'm a conservative Republican Christian, and I believe everything. And listen, this is how stupid my points of view were. I was very homophobic at the end of and towards or out right after high school, and I literally was like, which of the two major parties is against gay marriage? The Republicans? Okay, I'm with those guys. That was it. That was my whole foundation. I built everything on that because I was that homophobic for no goddamn reason. And then I was like, okay, I built this whole conservative foundation. I believe everything they said. And then the world's like, okay, here's reasons why this belief is false, and this one's false, and this one is false, and this one is false. And soon that whole foundation fell, and I became a libertarian. Yeah. Well, then I was like, oh, yay, Ron Paul. Let's get that guy to be president. Okay, well, he didn't win. Fuck it, Gary Johnson. Okay, this is pretty cool. Small government sounds great. I really like these ideas. And then Bernie Sanders appears, and I'm like, socialism actually has some pretty good points, but I do like freedom. And socialism is bad for freedom on a fundamental level, according to some people. And like, it's hard for me to reconcile where I really am between socialism and libertarianism. So it's difficult for me to say where I am on anything other than like my ideal feelings.
Yeah, that's you're an honest opinion. There you go.
An independent voter.
And it's okay to say, I don't know. I think that I wish more religious people would say, I don't know, rather than saying, I know, and then coming up with something to defend that you're not even sure on. It's the same way with politics. And you're like, shit, I don't know who I should vote for. I'm like, be honest, and that's kind of cool. I think people sometimes fear those around them, though. What if you're all your friends or your family are hardcore political ideologues? Well, how do you don't know, you might be afraid to admit it. And you're going to say, I'm this or that. Same way with the religious. You don't know how to defend it.
I saw a picture of a Minesweeper game, and it was like just the regular window of Minesweeper. Yeah. It was a brand new game. Like the whole board was just squares. And the caption reads, talking about politics with anyone nowadays.
Yeah.
That's a very good analogy.
But at least with Minesweeper, you knew the 1-2-1 rule. I mean, you knew how to avoid mines. Or was this all mines?
You just, I know how to play the game.
It never revealed. It was just that picture. It was. It wasn't a gift.
Oh, right, because you could open up on a mine. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So speaking in terms of your community, connecting it to your surroundings and thoughts within your community, where are you based? Do you have challenges being able to express yourself within your community? I know that we have, for instance, Godless Engineer that's in Alabama. I know you're familiar with them. Do you have
I'm within a reasonable drive of a Godless Engineer, and I'm in the southeastern United States as much as that's as much as I'll say. Now, I'm not somebody who's under threat of violence from religion, so don't get it twisted that I'm paranoid. I'm just acutely aware of the fact that if my regular identity and my channel's identity were connected, that my career prospects are shot.
Yeah.
And I'm nowhere near comfortable enough, and I don't know if I'll ever be, making money doing this, and I don't really care to get there. I just want to help. Like, I want to do what I can to change the world for the better, and what I feel like I'm good at is talking about religion and helping people see the error in religion, and, you know, even if I can't make them see in it, let them know that atheists aren't a bunch of dickbags, because one of my best friends at my last job was hardcore religious, and she and I got along really well. And if I can even do that, that would be great. But anyways,
no, you're not the only one.
You teach pluralism.
I just can't talk about it, but I lose friends. So I've chosen to take it private.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I have similar feelings and experiences as well. In fact, this podcast is now few and far between for me to be doing, and for me, it's almost like taking a plunge. You know, going on the air and interviewing as well for that same reason. Even though I've been doing this since day one, I now kind of just hang out a little bit more in the background. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, the power swings to one side, and then suddenly your viewpoints become challenged and unaccepted. And I can totally understand that inability to feel completely, free with one's own thoughts as well.
Yeah,
and not only, I don't mean my own thoughts in terms of me personally, but how my thoughts may be viewed by the community around me.
Yeah. And that's
because go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's why I think if you strive to always just be as honest as you can, regardless of whether your viewpoint is going to be in the popular or unpopular, that's all people can expect. So it's one of the things they're constantly communicating. But go ahead.
That's why it's hard for me. As you said, honesty is the main thing. That's one of the reasons it's hard for me lately to make a video, because I'm so scared of misstepping and making an error or leaving something out. And I want to give an honest account of these songs because they mean a lot to people. These aren't just like top 10 radio hits. These things are, they bring inspiration to people. They bring people to tears, to their knees. Like, this isn't a game to most people that like this music. They base their life around worship, and worship isn't just something you do for singing. You're praising your creator. It's the most intimate thing you do. It's the entire reason you exist according to your religion. So for me to attack that is literally going directly to the center of their religion and saying, fuck you. So what I want to try to do, if I can, is to give the most honest account of how it's supposed to make you feel, and then share my thoughts about it. But I'm so scared that I'm going to miss something. And like, I know I'm going to hurt feelings regardless, and that's part of what I accept, but I just don't want to be wrong while I do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And but that's, again, you can revise your stuff. I mean, like, religion itself goes through multiple revisions, right? There's a process for it in the Catholic Church. They've even hammered out, right? So it can evolve. And I think in any organized religion, things do, and there's even a process for it. So why couldn't your skepticism evolve in the same way, as long as you're being honest and saying, look, this is, if your viewpoint does change, let people know why. And that you're always open to viewpoint change with more evidence.
So speaking of bringing people to their knees and tears, does Creed fall into this category of music? I see that you had a show called the Passionate Pull-Up.
Oh, it's a 45-second video of Scott Stapp of Creed doing nothing but doing that hand motion. And I know you guys don't do video, and I wish your audience could see what I'm talking about. But, like, there's one song in particular where he does it a lot. And it's just him doing, like, a chin-up and, like, looking all passionate and shit while he does it. And it's kind of a shit post, like I just did it for fun. But yes, Creed is very, very religious, and they won't admit it. Like, look at the song My Own Prison. It's obviously about hell. Look at the song Higher. And Higher's obviously about heaven. There was another one. It's like, oh, what's this life for? Oh, I wonder. Because we all live under the reign of one king. The fuck else is it talking about? Yes, Creed is a Christian band.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I like their music. Because I just grew up with it and it was cool. I mean, never like super duper cool, but it's catchy to me, and it's just, I don't know, I like it.
Because the last big band that
I thought it was
knew,
awesome.
The last big band that we knew was Christian that like made it was Stryper. right?
I don't even know much about that band. Oh, a side note, the song "What If" by Creed is my favorite, and it's like their most metal song, and it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Your intro song is really good, by the way. You've got rights to use on it, so it's pretty cool. That little intro riff.
The guy doesn't need my help, but why not? Because you guys have a large audience. The guy that does it, his band was called Death Mole, and now it's Stelliferous, I believe. And you know him better as, if you've ever read the webcomic Questionable Content, he's the author of that. And this band, quote unquote, is all him playing all the instruments and layering them together. And he's really fucking talented, and you should go listen to his music and read his comic.
So what do you have coming up next? Do you have another project, another song, another hymn that you're working on that's going to be coming out soon?
I'm kind of at a crossroads. I'm not sure what to do next. I do know that I should do a song next. I was trying to put together a series of videos about the song I Can Only Imagine. I got as far as doing an interview with Hugo, which is up on my channel from the Bible Reloaded, Hugo specifically. And I've been trying to get in touch with Cult of Dusty. He said he would do it with me because he grew up Christian too. Why not? I would love to get Armored Skeptic because he's a former Christian, and who doesn't want to talk to Armored Skeptic? I mean, he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And because he very rarely does he ever talk about how he felt as a Christian. And I would love to be able to ask him about his perspectives on some of this old music, especially a song like I Can Only Imagine. My goal with that song is to get a series of former Christian, now atheist YouTubers who are somewhat well known to share their thoughts, put it all into one video, of course, have the interview videos separately so people can watch the whole thing, and then put the whole big video together and have this definitive, super long video about how the atheist community feels about this song. Yeah. Because it's arguably, besides Amazing Grace, the most well-known Christian song there is, and it's extremely emotional. The intro fucks with me still.
Yeah. Well, there's some good science for that too. Words, as far as what when you're saying them, when we're talking them now in song, are actually stored in different parts of the brain. They're not the same. So those that have memory injuries, with some sort of a stroke or some head trauma, one of the things is sing to them. Because if you can't get the words through and they're not getting, singing goes to a slightly different place. So those with memory issues will maybe have memory of music, yet not of their own events in life. So it's weird. We don't know why, but they go to different places. So you would expect a little bit for that to connect in a different place for you. So, there's
this
some
reminds me of something. And I'm sorry, I know I've rambled a lot, but this reminds me of I used to. My best friend's dad was a DJ at a very big Christian radio station where I live. Ironically enough, I mean, Christian music is this guy's forte, and I was going to maybe live with them for a little while. And I still love the whole family, by the way. Nothing bad to say about them. And even though we differ drastically on our viewpoints, they're wonderful people. But he tried to impose a rule. He said, if you're going to come live here, you can't listen to any secular music because secular music or music is the devil's playground, because the devil was God's music dude in heaven. Don't know where the fuck that came from, but I just accepted it because he was a preacher and he knew better than me.
Yeah.
And it made sense because music connects with you on a more emotional level than spoken word ever could. And as you said, there's scientific backing for this.
Yeah.
Why would you allow somebody to be influenced by secular music when you could use your worship music instead to maintain that influence?
Yeah, he's made a boogeyman, and that's the problem. Don't hang out with them; they are X. And substitute political ideology, race, sexual orientation in that, and you've got yourself your religion, you've got yourself a boogeyman, and it sucks. But yeah, Ave Maria and the Notre Dame's alma mater. Still love those songs, and I justify myself them, but I'm allowed to like those songs. They're pretty. So
you know what brings a tear to my eye? Amazing Grace on bagpipes specifically.
Yeah,
and any iteration of Taps. I mean, I know that's not religious, but damn, dude,
yeah. It's powerful.
Taps messes with me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's Hymnalysis. We've had the pleasure of having this conversation with him, and we hope to see you at MythCon 5. And, if you're so close to Godless Engineer, maybe you can hitch a ride.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do it.
So, well, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. For Mythinformed, thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for listening to Mythinformed. Mythinformed is brought to you by Mythicist Milwaukee. Producer Sean Frasick, Associate Producer Fritz Blondone and Kristen Whitaker Hood, Engineer Josh Benishek, and host Brian and Dimitri. Each week, we produce a new podcast that sheds light on religion, secularism, and mythology. If you enjoyed the show, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Mythicist. Mythicist Milwaukee also brings major secular conferences and debates to the Milwaukee area, along with community events, both local and online. To support us in bringing future events, visit mythicistmilwaukee.com and hit the donate button located at the bottom of each page to place a financial donation amount of your choice. And now, our closing theme, written and performed by Shelley Siegel.
Athena's wisdom and beauty, and Hades underneath. Isis of fertility, and ether of the Greeks. They all lie at rest, and who will be the next to die? You know they are all myths, and who will be the next to die? There was a time when everyone believed. Helios in the sun, Poseidon in the sea. Athena's wisdom and beauty, and Hades underneath. Isis of fertility, and ether of the Greeks. They all lie at rest, and who will be the next to die? You know they are all myths, and who will be the next